Hello and welcome to the Go Read Some Books podcast. I am Shane Skelton along with Josh Fillmore.
Hello, hello.
Today we're talking about books.
Lots of books.
Books. If you feel like you're losing your teen to technology, you're not alone. Many parents today are rowing the same boat, and today we have a book to help you navigate those turbulent waters.
Awesome. Let's get to it.
All right, Josh, today I am excited, man, really excited to talk to you about screens and teens.
This kind of follows up to the book we did last time, right?
Yep, Irresistible, the book we did last time.
Right.
Except that was written more by a secular author. This is by a Christian author. This is by Kathy Koch. She's a PhD. Book is published by Moody. Kathy is the founder and president of Celebrate Kids in Fort Worth, Texas. I think she has quite a few books that she's written as well about children and social media. I think this is maybe the third or fourth one she's wrote about it. Excellent little book. She speaks all over the country to parents, educators, and children of all ages on the topic of this little book. And she goes in to talk about how the screen time is rapidly replacing family time. And for teens especially, it's hardwiring the way that they connect with the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's warping their mindset a lot. And she helps, through this book, us to make sense of all the technology that our kids are facing. But she doesn't leave us there. She tells us how to respond to it. She gives us a guide for that. And she also exposes the lies that technology teach our children. And then she gives us some biblical truths and some helpful practices moving forward. She talks in the book a lot about success stories of how parents with challenging teenagers that were addicted to technology, how that they've overcome that. Basically, if they can, we can. Great stories like that. So there's hope for everyone. She's very experienced in her field. She's got some reliability in what she has done and accomplished, so you can have confidence when you read the book that what she's talking about is something that is tried and true and proven. And, of course, it's all rooted in biblical teachings and principles, so, the truth is there. So it's a great little book. Now, I came across this book when it was first published. I'm trying to remember exactly. That's been several years ago when it was first published, 2015. I got it shortly thereafter. And I read it, but be honest with you, I forgot about it. And it was just kind of like in the repertoire of books that I was reading at the time. So about, I'd say 6-8 months ago, I was flipping through Netflix on a rainy day trying to figure out what to watch on Saturday.
And which I do most of the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, no football games on at the time or whatever. So I thought, what am I going to do here? And so I ran across Kirk Cameron's documentary on Connect. And I thought, well, I'll watch that. Whatever Kirk Cameron's got is generally pretty good. So I flipped it over there and started watching it, which is an excellent documentary, by the way. And so when I was watching it, my son-in-law and daughter, who was raising smaller children, they were there. And so it's like, this is going to be awesome. So we watched it together and just thought, my goodness, this is something everybody needs to see. And so as it was going through the story, he was interviewing Kathy Koch, and it was this book that they were using. And I thought, wow, I've read that book.
I've got the insight.
Yeah, I've read that book. And but I forgot how good it was. I guess a different season in my life at that point. So I went back in my library, picked it up, read it again. It was almost like I was reading a book for the first time. It was so fresh. It was just exactly what I needed because of my children's age now and what I am facing with them. And so, as you know, I bought a case of these books, and I've handed them out to your Sunday school class, and most of the parents that are raising kids had them all over the house, watched the Connect series, and I just believe in this book that much. It is fantastic in helping you understand what our children are facing, and then how to navigate that and how to move forward in that. Now, you know me, I've raised, two sets of children. I've got two older children that we raised basically without technology. And then, when they were halfway grown, we decided to have a redo. And so
we're like, well, that first set didn't
we
work
need
out.
a mulligan. Anyway, so we basically had another set of children, and so raising these two have been actually different in raising the first two, because technology is more prevalent now than it was with our first two. Our first two, flip phones was that was as far as it went, and so our kids really wasn't into that. There was no social media, there was no Facebook and Instagrams, none of that kind of stuff, And so they wasn't as hip to it, and they wasn't as engaged with it as, these two now that are coming up in this society where it's at 3 years old, they're like wanting a smartphone.
Right. No, I can attest to that. Like, I grew up, we're about the same age. So I grew up, technology, about the most technology thing I had growing up was a Nintendo, the one you have to blow in, to get it to play. And so, that's where it's been challenging for me and Erica, trying to raise our little kids, which mine's younger than yours, 7, 4, and 1.5. So, and it's amazing to see two things I see out of this. It's amazing how quickly they pick it up.
They do.
And the other scary part is how aggressive they get over it, and how they're, when they're playing, how their attitudes shift.
That's exactly right.
And how their, attitudes shift when they don't get to play it, and it's almost like we talked last time, and I'll share the link up above my head here if you guys didn't get to catch it with the Irresistible, how addicting it really is.
It is. And see what she does in this book, which is so interesting, and Kirk Cameron does as well in his documentary, is they go into the science and the neurology of the brain and how it works. And basically, when children are transforming and they're becoming young adults in those teen years, their brain is being hardwired in a different way through technology than it would be if there was no technology. And so it's interesting the way she goes into it and describes it, and how it's changing our behavioral patterns. It's changing their attitudes, and a lot of the things that the behavioral problems that our children have can be traced back, believe it or not, to technology. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, there ain't no way. It can't be that simple. It is.
Right.
And if you can get your children off that for a little while, you will see a big difference in them. And she goes into a lot of that in this book.
My wife has seen that when kids are, they won't quit fighting and bickering, and, they've been on too much screen time is what we call it. My wife, forgets to charge iPads and forgets to charge, their little tablets and whatever. And it's amazing. It's like an addict going through withdrawals. They scream, they cry, they, throw a fit, they pout, the whole 9 yards, but give it 30 minutes to an hour. Luckily, they're, the kids, their patience is a lot quicker than ours, but, they are completely different kids. Like,
they are.
They actually
Their attitudes
they can play outside together. They actually have fun playing together instead of fighting over whose turn it is to watch whatever show that they're going to watch, and, whose turn it is to play whatever game they're playing. It's amazing how they can actually coexist without technology together, like you and I did. You know, when you go outside and play with a stick and a rock, some people might get hurt with the rock, but it was all still in fun. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway.
Well, in the first section of this book, she talks about how everybody, especially young people, are wired with some core needs that God has, designed all of us with. And technology is a poor substitute for these core needs. And the core needs are this: security, identity, belonging, purpose, and competence. And teenagers are turning to technology in this digital culture to meet those deep core needs. But then she talks about how that technology is a counterfeit to meet those needs. It can never do that. And she asks, through those 5 core needs, there's a question that comes with that she deals with. So security asks the question, who can I trust? And kids need to know that. Who can they trust? But teens are turning to technology instead of God for that. And God designed the need for security to be met through Him and through the family and through the church, not through social media. And so technology is a poor counterfeit for that. And then identity asks the question, who am I? And teens, again, turn to technology for the answer instead of God. And today's young people tend to be more conflicted about who they are. They're more conflicted about what their values are. I've never seen a generation more conflicted about who they are as a people than today. And that's saying something, being the fact I was raised from people who grew up in the 60s. You know, when they went out to find themselves.
Well, I mean,
but they had it more together, it seems like, than they do today, it seems.
Well, and the thing is like you would go into that so far-fetched that they don't even know if they're boy or girl anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
good night.
You know, that's to get on a completely different subject, but I mean, before technology, we didn't have that issue as much, you know?
Oh, no. But then the third thing is belonging, and that's the third core need, and that's the question that we have is, who wants me? And we need to understand my belonging is in God. My belonging is in the people that God has put in my life, my family, my church family, the people that God has put in my life with solid character, that I share certain beliefs with and common interests with and things of that nature. My belonging is with that circle, and that's where I find that, and I find out who I am. But teens today are turning to technology for the answer to that question, and it's a poor substitute for that. And then the next one is purpose, and the question with that is why am I alive? Why am I here? And the answer to that is we're alive and we're here to glorify God through who we are and what we do. But technology is robbing us of that. We're not turning to God to find that answer. We're turning to technology to find that answer, and we'll never find it in technology. And then competence is the fifth core need. And that question is, what do I do well? Now, she goes to talk about how God did not wire us for perfection. Okay, we don't need perfection, but He did wire us for competence. And that's a great thought there. But technology is causing our children to struggle to believe that their competence is good enough, because on social media platforms, they can find somebody that's always more talented and always more beautiful and always more competent, if you will, than they are. And what that's doing is that's causing a great dissatisfaction in them. So she talks about how technology is transforming communication and it's changing the way that our young people think. And she goes into great detail about how the mind works, especially when their mind is still developing them. And to have them immersed in technology, it's creating addictions, it's creating habits that are fatiguing, stressing, and overwhelming our teenagers when they don't need that in their life. It's causing depression, and as we talked about a while ago, they're acting out, and they don't really realize why they're acting out, but a lot of the frustration is coming from their addiction and immersing in technology.
And I have to confess, I struggle with that a little bit with social media, because I do videography and photography, and so I'm always when we did the whole social platform, or the social emotional vampire book, when we did that one, talking about the different types of sociotypes and that type of deal, and I'll link that up here if you guys didn't get to catch that. Was actually a pretty cool book too. But I fall in that obsessive perfectionist realm. And I've noticed that when I stay a lot on like Instagram or whatever, following different photographers or whatever, I'm more reluctant to put my work out because I always can find somebody better. And I struggle with that because I struggle with the fact that my work's not good enough to go out. So A, I don't put it out, or B, I'm always trying to make myself better with that competitiveness to say, well, I can do it better, so let me keep trying and keep trying,
which is healthy.
Right.
Yes.
But it ends up falling into there's always still somebody better, and it always is a real kind of a kick in the teeth, I guess, so to speak, when you can't get that picture perfect, So that's what I struggle with a lot is the philosophy of done is better than perfect.
Sure.
I always still struggle towards, well, I could use a little bit more tweaking, and then before you know it, I'm 2 weeks into it.
Sure.
So I can understand me being a grown adult and knowing that going into it, how somebody coming up, developing their mind, how they, a teen could really, really struggle with
a mature adult struggles with it.
Right.
So imagine how, a teenager struggles with it. Now, on the flip side of that, we have to understand that we should not ever strive to do shoddy work.
Right.
We're to strive to do all that we do for the glory of God and to the best of our ability. But when you're trying to measure yourself against your peers, and that's never wise,
right?
To do that. And the Bible even talks about that. So just imagine if you're struggling with it, so much more they are.
Somebody who's 13, I remember
they
growing up as a kid.
never pretty enough, and
Man,
never
tough.
can. Shoot the ball well enough or play the piano good enough. I mean, whatever it is that they do, there's always some. You can find a cat on the internet that can play the piano better than most kids. They're working hard at it. And you're like, well, if a cat can do that better,
right? Exactly.
It just breeds this dissatisfaction, and it breeds this mentality that I can never measure up. When our identity and our competency and all that should be in God and our belonging to Him, and know that we're accepted in Christ, and that brings joy, that brings satisfaction, that brings maturity. But if you're immersed in social media constantly, you're going to find your world turned upside down in that area, in your development. So that's the first half of the book, and she goes into greater detail about that, better than what I could do for sure in explaining that. But then the second half of the book, she goes into the 5 lies that technology through culture is teaching our children. And I think these 5 things are so important to understand about technology and about raising our teens. And here they are. Here's the 5 lies that's teaching our children, whether it be subconsciously or not, but this is what they're getting. Lie number 1, I am the center of my own universe. Now, without realizing it, teens have become their own God. They become the center of that. Now, the evidence of that is the selfie generation. I mean, every time you turn around, somebody's posting a selfie of themselves. Some teenagers posting a selfie of themselves or what they're doing. It's all about them, And I think parents have fed into that in sometimes a naivety way where, I want to capture those moments with my kids. I understand the value of memory and capturing the moments, but I think what we've done is because our cell phones have cameras on them, we can capture every moment of a child's life almost. And to us, it's a thing of legacy and memory, but to them, they're thinking different.
Right.
So for them, it's like, hey, there's a camera. It's all about me. It's all about, my life. But it's not about them. And we should teach our children that God is the one that's the center of the universe. He's the creator of all things. We're not. God is. But when you're constantly in front of a camera, it's all about you. Kids getting their first, poop. They got a picture of it on the internet. It's ridiculous. Here's my child eating breakfast, and here he is going to school, and what?
Right.
You're teaching your child that they are the center of the universe, and that's the lie that social media has bred into us. Unbeknowing us as parents, and I've been guilty of it. We want to capture those moments, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to understand that we think different than a child thinks. So we're thinking legacy, precious memories, capture the moment. We understand the brevity of life and we want to capture that, but our kids are not thinking that.
Right.
It's all about them. So that's lie number one. I'm the center of the universe.
I'd be okay with all those duck lips going away anyway. The bathroom duck lips.
Oh, my word.
It's like, you're in a bathroom. Like, really? Like, is it? There's a toilet right behind you in that picture.
Yeah. Do you have to? Oh, my word.
Anyway.
The world was created for God. It's not about us. And so we need to teach our children that. So counteract that lie. Mm. The second lie is, I deserve to be happy all the time. And technology and social media is promoting that mindset. Mm. But here's the reality. The reality is we cannot be happy all the time. Now, we can have joy, and there's an internal joy that's not based upon circumstances, but is based upon who we are and what we have in Christ. Mm-hmm. But happiness is based on circumstances. So if our circumstance is good, then we're happy. If our circumstance is bad, then we're not happy. Social media breeds the fact that, you have to have happiness all the time. And so you have to surround yourself with good events, mm-hmm. and events that are constantly promoting happiness and joy, not joy, but just a sense of happiness.
Yeah. Well, let me interject here. I build Instagram pages, okay? Let me explain something to everybody that's watching. That's fake. Those are all posed. Those candid shots that you get, 90% of them have been, that shot was probably taken 15 times to get the right one.
Oh, the right filters.
Exactly. And then
everything.
And you notice how when you look at certain Instagram pages, for one, Instagram's the worst about this, but if you look, each picture, it looks like it's a chain of events that mm-hmm. happened, and it's like, oh man, this all fits and it's beautiful and all that. They're staged that way.
Sure.
Like those are all like Lego pieces put together to make that look the way it is.
So if you don't have that in your own life and you can't reproduce that in your own life, then that causes you to have depression.
Correct.
I can't measure up.
Well, it's the same way it goes into girls in magazines. Let's just take it completely off social media. That was the big thing with magazines, wedding magazines and all that. They are photoshopped. Those girls don't actually look like that.
Oh, no.
And I didn't learn that until I started getting into photography, how much those pictures are actually manipulated before they go to a magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they trim things, they cut pieces off, hair is not as big as
spray paint.
I mean, that picture looks nothing like what that actual picture. So times that by infinity, because now you can do it with just about anything you want to on the internet. So I can imagine how
they can make these news anchors. I was looking at one the other day that was on, and she had this, her face was so smooth. I mean, it was silky smooth, but then it got right down to the neckline and it was all wrinkly and almost a different color. And I'm like, yeah, that's war paint right there, Fred. There's a lot of Bondo in that. But I mean, our young teenage girls are looking at that. They're like, man, I can't measure up to that. So it's all about circumstances and rather about inner joy. And you look about technology too, and the way things are changing so fast, and the posts that are coming in so much and the feeds that are coming up. It's breeding impatience in our children. It really is. It's breeding this mentality that everything has to be right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that everywhere. I mean, you wait 1 second after the light turns green. Mm-hmm. See what happens. Cars behind you will blow their horn like you had sat there for 3 light changes. I mean, they just get irate. You wait in line at Walmart, which you will, by the way. Mm-hmm. You wait in line at Walmart.
I absolutely cannot stand Walmart.
And watch your children get frustrated and get, irritated and start acting out. Yeah. And I mean, go through the line at the drive-thru, and if you can't get your Chick-fil-A sandwich in under 2 minutes, it's like the world is falling apart. And so it's all about circumstance. So we have to teach our children that, you know what? Life is about waiting. It's about sometimes the hard choices, and you can't avoid the difficulties.
We were making popcorn the other night in pop bags, whatever, and my daughter's like, why is this taking so long?
Yeah.
Like, it's a minute and a half.
Yeah, in a microwave.
Like, do you know how long this would have took if I had to put this on the pot? You know, like, I mean, like, I was just shaking my head like, child.
But that's what social media is breeding. And so that's a lie, and we need to understand that lie and teach them the truth about they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. You know, there are some difficulties that we have to face, but that breeds security when we go through those difficulties, and that helps with our identity. That helps with our spiritual maturity. So we have to understand that God brings difficult things in our life, and therefore our good, and we can have joy in the midst